Okay, guys, so we're back with some more Chaos Zero Nightmare. Now, I wanted to actually talk about a couple of things in this video. Now, we already have talks of nerfing circulating in the community, and you may be wondering where this sprouted from. Well, it's been kind of a buildup, but I think the icing on top of the cake has been some of the recent content coming out with Mei Lin. And I will say first and foremost, just to kind of address that, do I think that they should be nerfing anything in this game? No, I don't think so. And the other thing that kind of supports this too is that the developers have already stated that they want to do more buffing in this game. And I'm going to give some more reasons to that. But the other thing I also want to talk about in this video too is also just the overall development of our progression and what's going to get easier over time and what exactly is going to make it easier, right? So starting out though, let's talk about the nerfing. And I wouldn't come at this from the perspective of me doing this as long as I have, seeing what buffing does, seeing what nerfing does, the differences between nerfing and like say fixing a bug or exploit, right? And like really just fundamentally understanding like how the importance of these things kind of vary based off of the structure of each of the games that you're playing, right? Now, number one, okay? I want to say first and foremost, this is a PvE game, and granted, it's not necessarily the only reason why I don't think that they should nerf, but because of the structure of this game, the best thing they can do for the community overall is to buff things, right? Now, the other thing that supports this is that we have seasonal content. And with that seasonal content, there's going to be more chances for you to build and construct different save datas. Now, the obvious reason that I would say that this kind of comes to the forefront as a super important thing to just consider is the fact, okay, that every single season is going to be pulling value out of different units, right? So right now, in preseason, I would call this, we basically have like, you know, Haru, the unit that just came, you know, or the unit that was on a limited banner. We have Mei Lin, you know, you got certain units right now that's getting a lot of limelight. But with some of these new effects that are coming from some of the epiphanies and the different forbidden cards and all these different things that are going to be coming into the game, you're going to see a lot of other characters maybe shining a little bit more or more than what they were shining than before, right? Now, the other thing that also comes with this is data, right? Now, I'm not talking about save data, but if the devs do their due diligence, they can actually take this information and say, hey, these characters weren't that popular. What can we do to bring them more to the forefront, right? And that typically is the smartest way to go about it, because then we can say seasonal content, you may have characters rotating in and out, right? And so your favorite character may be the cream of the crop right now in this current season, but in the next one, it may be a different character. Now, the other thing is too, and I want to kind of actually look at some content to talk about this too, is that we have things like the basin. Now, the basin, I will say, it's really important to understand that, like, fundamentally with the basin, which I need to actually finish mine, but with the basin, this is going to be content that is going to have rotating units, more than likely. It's going to have different support buffs, which I'm going to presume that different units are going to be able to obviously take more advantage over those buffs, right? Like, for example, this support buff is plus 50% damage of targeting attack cards, one per turn. Next season, it could be something else, right? That's like more supportive to, you know, I don't know, random hitting or fixed damage or some sort of like, you know, it could be something completely different. So there's a lot of different layers that kind of goes into what would make something more of a required thing to be nerfed versus just being buffed. There's too many things I think that kind of fluctuate the idea or the structure of what's going to be predominant at one point versus another, right? And then the other thing is too, is if, let's just say the unit is just that inherently bad, it is so much easier and so much better to bring units up to par than to try to bring a unit down from the sky, right? And the reason why that is because here's what happens, right? Let's say, hypothetically, Rin was the best unit in the game, right? I put all these materials into my Rin. I said, you know what? I'm going to go all the way. I'm going to go all the way, right? And let's say even more so, just to throw some icing on top of the cake, Rin is a character that just came out on the gacha, and I summoned for her. And then I go and I build her, and she's fun, right? She's clapping. She's doing 2 million damage. I mean, granted, she's not doing that, but I'm just saying, I'm doing 2 million damage. And then the developers come and say, hey, nerf, right? Boom. Now we're going to take away 75% of her damage or something crazy like that, right? So that she normalizes, in quotations. That's going to end up causing a really, really, really bad effect in the game. And what that actually does, even when we're just talking about the long term, is going to make players actually afraid to invest into characters, and they're not going to want to build characters, which is kind of a weird thing that happens, but it is kind of a psychological thing that logically makes sense. Like, if I feel like they're going to possibly nerf something that I put all these resources into, I kind of don't really want to build things or go through the process of putting the time in for them to have to nerf it. And I'm not going to lie, nerfing in this game would just be so bad because of how time works in this game, right? Like, you doing a save data run, right? Like, let's just talk about that alone. Doing an actual save data run where you finally get a decent build that you really want to use, and then they nerf your character to the ground. Now, I think that there's a difference between balancing or normalizing something so it's not over capping certain things, and I would even say like maybe going into like an exploit level. But if the gimmick works for a character to be a certain way, hey, at that point you have to develop better content, and then you have to bring characters up to par, right? Like, that's just all it really is. And so I think that usually, like I said, just always is the better metric. And I have to remind you guys about this because this is one of the things that I think that a lot of people forget that people actually like in these games that have damage numbers when you're able to hit things. People have, and this is the term, they like to see big PP numbers. Okay? That's the thing that people like. That is actually a selling point, believe it or not. This is why some of the classic games are still predominant and as valued as they've ever been, like the Final Fantasies, right? Like, you seeing 9,999 pop up on the screen because you hit damage cap was just like one of the best things ever. And that's something that, like, if you start to diminish that value, people are, granted, are going to be okay, right? There's going to be some that are okay, like, oh, I have a unit that hits a lot, but if they can see their accumulative damage equals out to a certain amount, then they're like, hey, I'm still cool with that because it still gets me to that 9,999. But there's other people that really do like those big burst damages. And so I think that also is then going to the point of there's just different play styles. And so with that, I think the biggest aspect to this game is incorporating or having more cards that allow people to unlock those play styles a little bit more so that those play styles can actually hit those caps. So that's kind of the thing there, right? Now, the other thing is that when we're also talking about like just bringing units up to par, I think that like when you are looking at like the long term, that's something that's going to be necessary anyway, right? And I think even just when we're talking about the term power creep, a lot of people think that power creep is just this thing that's just so bad. And no, power creep should happen in gachas. And here's why. I know somebody's gonna be like, why do you mean power creep? Because gachas, again, remember the last video I made, gachas are not just about you summoning. It is a actual structure, right? It is a business model. It is not about you just summoning. It is a actual business model. So power creep exists purely, okay, not for your enjoyment necessarily. It is there so that it forces you to pull at some point, right? Because let's say you play a gacha game and you never ever have to pull for anything. That kind of would defeat the purpose. They might as well just release that as a full live service game where you play as one MC and that character is the only character you got, right? That's the whole point of gacha, is to get you to use your currency. So at some point, they have to release something that does something slightly better or just altogether better than the last thing that exists. The problem that happens sometimes is how quickly they power creep. So like, it'll be like game just start, next week, another broken unit comes out. Then 2 weeks after that, another broken unit that does the exact same thing, but one extra thing comes. And then another 2 weeks, here's another character that does the exact same thing the last character does, but then also has another layer, right? Like, the power creep has definitely gotten a lot worse over time, but if done properly, it's one of those things that's a lot more manageable, and it will get people to respond and want to actually go for that next thing and be in the place to go for it because they'll have currency to actually do it, right? Now, is it always going to be in your favor? No, but it's just that that's the actual point of it. And so with that being the case, you have to have a structure where you, or even just communicating, which I agree, I'm actually appreciative that they've already communicated this, that they're going to be going forward power creep or power creeping everything. They're like, see, Steve and Zox said it. They're going to go forward, buffing everything, bringing everything up to par to make them relevant. Now, are they going to be the cream of the crop or the strongest ever? No, but keeping things relevant and allowing people to still use characters that they've taken the time to invest in is always extremely important. So could we be seeing some reworks that make the characters better? Absolutely. Is that going to also be a touchy like thing as well? Possibly, right? Because the thing is that if they go and they change certain things, then that could also be messing with certain save data setups that people have made. So there is kind of a double-edged sword possibly there. But if they do it right and they really just focus on enhancing the main things that a lot of builds are going after, then that just is going to make it a lot better, right? So it's so many different factors that I feel like that goes into really trying to just keep things at that kind of standard norm. But the other thing is too, and this is a really important factor, is that I also think that this push and these thought processes and these conversations sometimes puts us a little bit too far ahead, and we're just not there yet for these conversations to really be applicable. And I do get trying to be like proactive, but I also think that we're kind of sort of getting a little bit too ahead of ourselves, right? We have to also get kind of used to the structure of how this game is, seeing what the devs do too, because they may already have some of these things in preparation, considering how communicative or how much they've been able to communicate with us and just how receptive they've been to feedback. Hey, they may have some of these things already in the works, like, hey, we're going to be adjusting this, we're going to be doing that. Who knows, right? And maybe even after season 1, that might be the true data testing for them to really see how like everything works in the real season, and then kind of how they'll go about doing balances and buffing. And one thing I could at least say is that like E7, which is their predecessing game, they've gotten to a point now where they really do a lot more buffing now, which is nice to see. So I'm hoping that they really just stick to that and they just stay true to that and they just bring units up, right? Even if it's 1 to 2 every couple of patches or something like that, that would be great for the game, because that would really allow players to continue to play the characters that they really like. Now, I want to also lastly talk about the thing that's going to get better over time, because I'm not going to lie, I have had the hardest time building my Orlia, and it's just because she's just a hard character to build at base, right? Now, there's a difference, and I'm probably going to have a whole nother video about this, building characters from base versus building characters with dupes, right? There are some characters that are amazing at base to build and to develop, and to help you develop your other characters, right? And that's something that I noticed that like over time, the main thing that's really going to affect that, and this is why like unit investment is going to really matter a lot, it's actually going to be not only the potentials, but it's the manifest ego, okay? Manifest ego, I was like kind of trying to understand what was the manifest ego really about, because duping in most games is like, okay, we can allow these characters to have these extra layers, these extra abilities, they're just mad OP in everything that they do. But considering the type of game this is, you're starting from scratch over and over and over. What would be the purpose of duping, even if you do have a good build, right? And really, when I started looking at a lot of the dupes, these dupes are really intended to help you a lot more when you're trying to navigate the chaos or zero system. They do obviously still help you with your builds when you have the save data, but these definitely add an edge when you're doing your exploration in the zero system. Like, for example, if I could retain Will of Light, like that's a huge like boon when you're talking about being able to have the card on hand that just now carries over and you can just use it whenever you're ready to activate all the retain effects in your hand, right? Versus when she doesn't have that dupe, you got to just kind of hope that you get that card in the like a specific point in time in the right window for you to use it properly. Like, you know, so it's like that, right? Kind of the same thing with like some of the other units, right? Like we're talking about even Ren, like Ren being able to have 20% more damage to the Dark Mist Secret Art Black Dance, right? If she has the Dark Mist stance, she creates a Sheath Sword card. And that basically, if we go to this right here, it's 68% damage plus 20% according to the number of Ren attack cards used this turn. And if no other Ren attack cards is in the hand, the cost is -1. This is extra like extra damage and another freaking skill basically for her to use. Like, these are things that are going to allow you to just kind of make your process much easier. And so that's like the thing I've been like kind of looking at, like with the duping system. And this is why I think what they've done so far is actually going to be amazing. The fact that they're allowing us in the shop for each season, it looks like, to be able to buy a dupe or get a dupe for a character, that's going to really open up the game a lot for a lot of people, because then over time, it should actually get easier for you to use your units. Even like some of the, like I said, even like the harder units should be a lot better for you to be able to develop and build up throughout each season. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like personally, there's a lot of different factors as to how this game is going to kind of like, I guess, unravel. But I also think that too, we have to kind of give it some time. It hasn't been enough time to really see where the direction of the game in terms of unit development and all that stuff is really going. And like I said, it just, for me personally, my at least experience and my take on nerfing is just never something that feels good. Players really don't like it if they go and they aim for something and then it gets destroyed or put into the dirt. I always think the best way you can go about things is, hey, take that L, take it on the chin, and unless it's not something that's extremely game breaking, bring the other characters up to par. That's the best thing that you can do. So yeah, guys, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. I'm kind of interested to know how you guys kind of feel, because I know you guys have been seeing it. But yeah, I just feel like it's a little bit too early, man. We got to give the game some time to kind of cook and just kind of see like what happens over time, because I'm almost certain that certain things will come out where they kind of allow us to open up our builds a little bit more. And if not, we just got to give that feedback. So yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Everyone, stay blessed. I'll catch you guys in the next Chaos Zero Nightmare video.